Hiring Happenings is the new podcast from Recruiting Gym, bringing you hiring news every month with a pestle twist.
Sponsored by Monster.
Hello and welcome to Hiring Happenings with a pestle twist. I'm Angela Cripps, the MD of the Recruiting Gym. The pestle stands for political, economical, sociological, technological, legislative, and I cannot believe we're already in June and therefore we're on the environmental. Those first 6 months, we're tackling the UK. As of July, we'll be heading global for politics again. Oh my goodness, there's lots to talk about there. But we want to work on this first of all because environmental is impacting us a lot. I couldn't believe that the economic growth in the UK was actually scuppered by the weather. And that was the reason they were giving for it. So we're not going to get into that side of it. We want to look at the business side. We want to look at it from a recruitment. So I've got two wonderful guests, both amazing recruiters as well. So Renu Gundala and also George Wilson. I'm going to get them to introduce themselves now and give you a little insight into how they touch on environmental. So Renu, we'd love to hear from you first.
Hi, everyone. It's lovely to be here. I'm a HR recruiter in the charity sector, and I run a business called Talent Grader. I also have a talent assessment hub, which is a database for assessments like psychometrics, which makes it easy for recruiters and HR professionals to find assessments online easy.
Fantastic. And your interest then in environmental, why have we brought you on today?
So one of the reasons that you asked me to come on was because of my interest in getting certified as a B-Corp organization. So I'm exploring that journey at the moment, and I'm at a very early stages of the process, but I'd like to share more about that. So.
Fantastic. I like the way you say that you're exploring that, and it is a journey. So we're going to come back to that because there will be people that are really interested in that and others that won't actually know what a B-Corp is. So we're going to delve into all of that. George Wilson, if you would like to introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for also the opportunity to be here. Looking forward to being a part of this. So my name's George Wilson. I'm the operations director here at Principal People. Been here for just over 10 years myself, but the business is actually nearly 40 years old. Started off as a generalist recruitment agency and then developed into an agency that specialised within HSEQ. We've been really putting a big focus on environment and sustainability since around about 2016. And we've had a lot of success with health and safety clients who also are responsible for environment and sustainability within their businesses. So I always say that David Attenborough's got a lot to answer for ever since the documentary he made around that sort of time. Ever since then, before you knew it, we had cardboard straws at McDonald's, and you couldn't find a plastic straw for love nor money. Before you know it, your friends are doing degrees at university around environment and sustainability. And we're hearing more and more for both internal and external candidates at the moment that they really do care about things like social value and also what businesses are doing to help improve the world that we live in. It's generally becoming more and more important. And because of that, what we've seen as a trend is that more and more people are in turn recruiting for professionals that specialise within environment, sustainability, CSR and ESG. It's an extremely diverse sector and space, and we're also noticing it's probably an industry that's still very much in its infancy, just like health and safety was 20 years ago. So yeah, really excited to see what happens over the next 10, 20 years, I suppose.
I must admit, when you talked about the cardboard straws there, those that have sort of moved on, because I must admit, they're great for about a minute or two, aren't they? And then it's like all squishy and you can't get a drink. But it's the people that out of their back pocket, they suddenly appear a metal straw. My daughter's one of them, and you're just like, that's brilliant.
That's really very organised.
Exactly. And you're right, David Attenborough, oh my goodness. And I watched one of his programmes last night, and it was about building bridges so that this tribe that's in the mountains would never be able to live there if they hadn't actually worked out how to grow the roots of trees through tubes. So they'd put tubes across, and these roots of trees would just grow, and they ended up building these beautiful bridges that were just made out of the tree roots right across canyons. That it was amazing. So talk about sustainability and environment in that sense. David Attenborough has been there right from the start, hasn't he? So yeah, we'll put a few links into that for everyone. If you haven't seen that one, Green Planet, then definitely go and have a look at that. Right, okay, so we've got lots to talk about, and as I say, you're both touching on it from slightly different angles, which is always great. So B-Corp then, Renu. So I heard about this about a year and a half ago. Didn't know what it was at all, and didn't appreciate that there was an opportunity to actually sign up to become a B corporation. And I just did a little bit of research. It may have changed by the time this comes out, but there are 2,750 B Corps companies in the UK, of which 41 are recruitment companies. So once yours goes through, that'll be 42. But it's not a lot, is it? If you want to differentiate yourself from competitors, this may be the way to go. So tell us about B Corp, but also why you decided to apply for it.
I heard about B Corp about 4 years ago. Actually, I was using a shared working space, and they did a session on B Corp, the organizers over there, and I thought, that sounds really interesting. But when I heard about the complexity of the assessment and what it involves, I was like, oh, maybe not for me. But then as you know, I mainly work in the charity sector, and when I speak to candidates, there's a lot of focus on what does that organization do? What impact do they make on the people or the planet, etc.? We talk a lot about that to kind of, it happens in every sector, but more so in the charity sector, the impact that that organizations make on the beneficiaries or their people is quite important, isn't it? So that I get great joy, and I find it very rewarding that I work in the charity sector with such good clients, and then it also gives me great pride to talk about those jobs to the candidates. And so that kind of made me think about, all the good work that I do in the charity sector is actually making an impact. And when I look at the charity sector reports, they're always measuring impact. And I was thinking about, how do I measure the impact that I'm making through to my clients and the candidates? And then I kind of put two and two together. I remembered what the B Impact Assessment does to get the certification for B Corp certification. And I thought, okay, let me come back to that again. And I recently started exploring that again, and I am attending a training course to help me with the application process. It's a very long process, but essentially why I decided to go for the B Corp certification is that all the good work that I'm doing through recruitment in the charity sector, whilst it gives me great joy, I want to kind of see how it's actually impacting and what else can I do to make myself more accountable as a business and be force for good. And all the work that I do in the diversity and inclusion space, and how can I talk more about that and make an impact. And this certification kind of seemed like a really good way to say it's a gold standard work that I'm trying to achieve. And it only will make me do better as an organization and also as an individual recruiter. So that is why I kind of decided to go for this certification. So it's a long answer, but yeah, hopefully that gives a gist.
That's got the phrase around it, isn't it? A force for good. That's the key to it. So George, I'm going to bring you in here because principal people, it's already in the name, isn't it? That you've very much been a force for good for those 40 years. So if you want to talk a little bit about the company and how you've ended up getting into this market, because you said it sort of changed over, about 2016?
Yeah, so we were predominantly very health and safety focused from sort of the late 90s through to sort of the mid 2000s. Like I said, and I said it tongue in cheek earlier, but I did mean it. David Attenborough really does have a lot to say for this, because after that documentary went out, I can't remember which one it was exactly by name, but that when that documentary came out, it was like overnight. All of a sudden, all of the young people in the country all of a sudden thought, hold on a second, you know, we're damaging our planet and the future. And I think the ripple and the knock-on effect that has had across the world it has then meant that there is pressure on the financial markets, and because of that, you've then got, you know, businesses that are financing organisations and companies. They want to keep their shareholders happy. Shareholders want to see good ESG reports, and then as well, there's pressure on the government. And then with the net zero plan that the government has put into place, some companies were already kind of improving environment and sustainability practices at this point, but in the last sort of 5 years or so, especially when net zero came in, and especially with us leaving the European Union, at the end of the day, we still trade with Europe a lot, and any large business still needs to abide by the EU laws and the EU rules, which means, you know, for all intensive purposes, they need to put in the same policies and procedures. Because of that, meant that they've continued to need to add to these environment and sustainability teams. And then you've also got infrastructure projects, so things like HS2, massive one.
Oh God, sorry, we all just took a sigh there, didn't we? When you say HS2, oh goodness, yeah, sorry, tell us all about it.
Well, I mean, HS2 is a great example. We work with a number of the contractors and the joint ventures that are involved in that project. And I think from the outskirts, you might think, well, what's happening with that now? You know, it's all gone a bit quiet since they cancelled the northern half of it, but it's still very much a live project where there's a lot going on. There's a lot of uncertainty attached to it, no doubt. But in terms of recruiting ecologists, ESG and environmental professionals, it's very much still live. So
I didn't realise that, actually. I thought the whole lot had been cancelled. So there's still recruitment going on there.
Yeah, a lot of recruitment. So you've got, we've had 2 clients last week call us, both infrastructure businesses, both working across rail, civil engineering and utilities and things like that. And, you know, their big challenges are contamination. That's a big one, especially within civil engineering. So and carbon offsetting as well is a big thing as well. So I think that's the thing. There's so much to tackle here, and there's so much where everyone can improve. And what I think businesses are doing at the moment is they're balancing, I suppose, the passion that their employees have, the environmental employees have towards what they do and what actually makes commercial sense, and finding candidates that can do both. I think the larger organisations have the budgets to be able to, we spoke earlier about some blue sky ideas and blue sky thinking, and the bigger businesses can do that. They can afford it, gets the stakeholders happy. But the smaller businesses, they have to make a bigger focus towards actually the environmental impact, and, you know, but just making sure that they're doing what they need to do to get by, and things like that. And as the interest in environment and sustainability and the interest of that sector grows across our country and across our culture, there's more pressure on businesses to do that now. And businesses like the Environmental Agency will put through, you know, I'm sure longer term there'll be higher fines and things like that. And that pressure means that people then start to invest internally in these positions.
Well, I knew we'd get to it, because we've had in every single session so far that politics always comes into play. And of course, we've got the manifestos out at the moment. We're going to be having, well, when this goes out, the general election will be the next week. And certainly from the Green Party's point of view, but also all of the other parties realising things like cleaning up our waterways, because we'd got them to such a great place, and we had some amazing breakthroughs over the last 10-20 years or so, and it's all just gone down the pan in the last couple of years, where we've got all of this pollution back in the rivers. So I know that's one thing people will be expecting us to comment on that. So I'm really hoping that by the end of the year we've made progress on that again, and we start turning it around, because it just has an impact on everyone. And we've seen that with local communities not even being able to drink their water. I mean, it gets to that point, doesn't it? Right down to the individual not being able to turn the tap on and have a drink. And you just think this is madness. So corporate social responsibility, well, you mentioned CSR, corporate social responsibility there. So Renu, your clients working in the charity sector, how good are they at CSR, would you say?
I think it's kind of baked into the work that they do. It's needless to say that, but quite often candidates ask about, what is the mission of the organization, the values, etc. And I was looking at a report on Glassdoor earlier, and 79% of the candidates want to only apply for jobs if the mission and purpose of the organization is quite clearly listed and they understand what they do actually and the impact on the community, etc. So
Brilliant.
That's actually a really surprising number. I wouldn't have thought, because you're kind of thinking, oh, what else is important apart from purpose, and the salary, of course, and the benefits will be there. But yeah, so it's
I'm thinking that's the David Attenborough effect again, because I do remember that documentary you're talking about. We will get the right one and we'll put the details in there, because he's got it from when he started 70 years ago. So he's got all the data, he's got the films, he's got the information, and therefore seeing it that length of time and the impact that it's had on our planet was really, it took your breath away, and you were like, wow, okay, yeah, we need to do something about that. So that's really lovely to see. 79%, that's a lot, isn't it? So if you're not thinking about this, recruiters, that's the whole point of Hiring Happenings. Get you thinking about the bigger picture stuff, what's going on, and actually what could impact my business. And therefore, if 4 out of 5 candidates aren't going to accept your clients' jobs because they're not on the right path and they haven't got a clear vision, they can't see the purpose behind it, and that's going to have a huge impact. So Renu, carrying on with your B-Corp journey then, because this is something that people can do to really stand out, and clients will love it, candidates will love it, as we've just heard.
Yeah.
What's the biggest challenge, though, of actually applying for it? Because if people are thinking about it, and the UK is the second biggest community of B-Corp companies, so we're doing good. So let's carry that on. But yeah, what's the biggest challenge do you think you found?
What I'm finding as the biggest challenge at the moment is the resources, the amount of time it takes. And obviously, I'm only one person in the business at the moment, so I'm kind of finding ways. What is it that I do on a day-to-day basis? Somebody else can help me with, so I can focus on the application. And the application process is quite complex. They focus on 5 impact areas. I'm just going to look at the list so I don't mess up the areas. So governance, workers, community, environment, and customers. These are the 5 impact areas that they look at. And we have to collect a lot of evidence to prove what we are doing to be an ethical business. And that has a clear mission and values, and what impact do we have on the society. And the customers that we work with. And for me, it's really great because I work within the charity sector, and I can shout a lot about that. And there are some good points associated with that as well. But it's the time and of course the cost as well. Those would be the 2 things that any business that is interested in B-Corp certification needs to kind of think about.
So you've really got to offset that cost, thinking about future business, haven't you? And I know there are already companies that will only deal with B corporations, so therefore it's a bit like probably 10-15 years ago, where you had to have a CSR policy for them to be able to work with you, or you had to be ISO accredited back 20 years or so ago. This is the new accreditation that could make a huge difference as to whether companies will work with you. But George, if I flip it to the candidate side, and what's in it for them, because your market then, if you could share some insights into the candidate market within this forum, and what's happening there and what people need to be aware of.
Yeah, sure. So I think just quickly before I go on to that, actually, I'll just make a comment. We actually looked at becoming B-Corp ourselves, and we're actually looking at it from a wider standpoint, because we're actually part of a company called the ULA Group, which is a global recruitment group based out of Scandinavia, but covering the whole world basically. And we actually just joined the UN Global Sustainability Group instead in the first instance, which is the largest corporate sustainability group in the world. So we're actually part of that at the moment. We've got some initiatives running through that. So I thought I'd just mention that as another thing that other people can look at.
It's an alternative, but if you do that first, that's going to give you some great information and data then when you do apply, isn't it?
Another thing as well is with B-Corp, if you are interested in becoming a member of it, they actually have local B-Corp groups. I don't know, Renu, if you've been involved in any of these, but you can Google your local group, and they usually meet once a month, and it brings together local businesses. And there'll be one a lot closer than you think there will be on your doorstep. And I've actually been to a couple of those as well, where you can go and meet with like-minded businesses, especially smaller businesses. There's a whole host of different people there. There's people that work in recruitment. There's also people that have sustainable businesses and are looking to grow the name of it. And everyone kind of just has a conversation similar to Renu, who have a genuine interest in it. So just a couple of points on that.
Yeah, definitely. And shout out, actually, they've got a festival going on this year. So if it's Oxford, September the 10th or 11th, if you're thinking about it, then maybe the festival's for you as well. So definitely get involved.
So I suppose that the biggest changes that we've seen is an increase in salaries. I mean, you probably would have expected it anyway, but to give you a bit of an understanding and an idea, I kind of benchmark against health and safety, because that is the market in the industry that we predominantly recruited for. And environment and sustainability in a lot of businesses does still sit either under or part of the same sort of stream as health and safety. But these guys in environment and sustainability, for a number of years, were getting paid £10,000 to £15,000 less than their counterparts in the safety industry and sector and space. However, what we've found in the last couple of years, definitely last year, they were getting paid the same, if not a little bit more. So kind of an experienced environment sustainability professional would kind of hope to be on a sort of minimum of about £40,000 now. But you've got, in some instances now, the heads of environment or directors of environment and sustainability sitting at board level, and well over £100,000, and in some instances, up to sort of 200, 300,000, depending on the responsibility globally. So salaries have definitely been a massive part of that. But also, I think that I mentioned it earlier that the industry is still very much in its infancy. Not everyone in the industry necessarily seems to agree with one another in terms of who is what, and who needs to take accountability for all sorts of things. So we kind of classify, you've got environment, sustainability, CSR, and ESG, and all of them do different things. I suppose for us personally, it is the environmental sector that we do most of our recruitment, and that's because that's the part that predominantly sits in line with our health and safety recruitment that we do. However, as I've mentioned to you, CSR, sustainability, and ESG does often sit within those business streams as well. So what we do find is that people call themselves lots of different things, let's just say. So that can absolutely be a challenge in terms of the recruitment of that area. But also, people that tend to get into this sector in the first instance tends to be because of a passion, because they care about the environment, they care about where they live. And one of the challenges that we've definitely faced, especially for candidates that are maybe a bit earlier on in their careers and want to step up into more senior roles, quite often to be more senior, you're going to have to travel a bit further. That could be regional, could be national, could be internationally. And I think for a lot of people in that industry, that first hurdle of kind of realizing sometimes you have to be part of the problem to be part of the solution, I think can be a moral dilemma for a lot of people in the first instance.
What do you mean you need to be part of the problem to be part of this?
Okay, so if you're an environmental advisor, as an example, and your role is, to maybe cut carbon, as an example, but you're national, you're going to occasionally have to be here, there and everywhere, up and down the country.
Oh, okay, yeah, no, I'm getting it now. So yes, all those G7 people getting together for their summits, but they're all flying on private jets and things. Yeah,
correct. Like that would be an example of it. But in order to be part of the solution, you need to be part of that problem. If you don't do it, then how are you going to make that impact to improve it as a business and as an organisation overall? It's not just about you individually, it's about the business and the organisation. A big thing as well, may or may not be aware, but obviously electric cars is obviously massive at the moment. It's a big talking point, but a lot of businesses now offer these as a benefit because there's tax benefits of taking an electric car over a company car or a hybrid car or something like that. But once again, talking to businesses, if you're let's say you're part of an internal people's team or a recruitment team here, how can I get interest from people? I mean, we have some clients like, you can have a diesel van and they're an environmental advisor. Well, an environmental advisor is never going to take on a diesel van. And I think that some businesses need to kind of move with the times a little bit more in terms of what is more acceptable now for, I suppose, more modern employees and perhaps younger employees that are coming up out of university. They have got certain expectations. They want to be part of businesses that do care about the future that they're going to be a part of. And I think some people are overlooking the importance of that. Look, there's pressures on everyone at the moment in terms of finances, but if you're looking at a way to improve the attraction strategy, that absolutely would be one. And especially like salary sacrifice schemes for vehicles and things like that, they're a great way to get some buy-in.
Definitely. And you're right. It's not all about the money for a lot of people. I think we all sort of learned that lesson during COVID, didn't we? Where, okay, maybe your salary was 80% if you were on furlough, but you realise, well, if I don't travel as much, then I don't need as much salary. So the hybrid working or the working from home really helped as well. Renu, I don't know whether you're going to be able to answer this or not, but I'm going to ask you anyway. But your clients, what things have you seen in the benefits packages that maybe is a little bit different and maybe along these lines?
I think it's more around the flexible working. There are, at the same time, I say this, but at the same time, I'm having conversations with clients where they are a little bit reluctant to offer more flexibility in the hybrid working. But increasingly, we have seen organizations pushing hybrid working or even considering remote roles as well. Previously, they wouldn't have considered. So that is kind of helping people to think more carefully about the salary. Okay, that job is paying a bit more, but this organization is more flexible and it's closer to what I'm looking for. And it helps me with my work-life balance, etc. So candidates are having to consider that. So there is a lot of consideration in the charity sector as well to be more flexible employers, and because they're unable to pay higher salaries compared to other industries, that is definitely a value-add benefit, I would say.
I was listening to Alec Reid, Sir Alec Reid, on John Brooks's podcast recently, and they talked about the company actually being owned 18% by the Reid Foundation, by a charity. So people were wanting to join them because they were seeing that one day a week they were actually helping and working towards benefiting a charity. So something along those lines. Again, it's all part of the company, but the company does great out of it. The clients love it. The engagement in the business they saw go through the roof, and people really happy to put that extra mile in because they know that they're also helping a charity along the way and all the good things that it does. And it's definitely been a conversation over the last few years around asking what people's passions are. What is it that they would like to give back? And again, 1 day, 2 day, once a quarter, where they're actually letting employees go to work on a passion of theirs. And certainly a lot of them, it's been around environment. George, does principal people do anything like that?
Yeah, we do a lot of that. I mean, speaking on behalf of candidates and what and also what we actually do as a business. So I think corporate and social responsibilities are a really interesting one. I think that's the main focus for a lot of them. And so we as a business do charity days, whether they are company organised. So we've got a charity golf day for Sight for Surrey coming up because one of our colleagues is severely visually impaired. Also to kind of I suppose we partner with our environmental side. We're also doing a beach clean as well later on in the year, which should be, and also
let me know when that is. I'd love to get involved in that. Things like that, I just think are brilliant.
So they're pre-organised ones that you can get involved in as well. And look, there's lots of benefits. The benefits, obviously, helping the environment, but also engagement of staff. And also team building, all of these kinds of things are the benefits of it. We also, from a more environmental aspect and impact is, I mentioned earlier, salary sacrifice schemes. There's a fantastic one at the moment that we actually run ourselves with Octopus, and as well as it means that you get people driving electric cars, which can obviously be beneficial, but also there's a positive impact as well financially for your staff as well. There's also things like wellness days as well. I know that a lot of people, and corporate and social responsibility can mean all sorts of different things. It can mean your responsibility of the local community. It can be looking after your own staff. So there's those things as well. We also did a thing recently at Easter where we went and delivered some Easter eggs to the children's ward of the local hospital. And look, these sometimes are things that are relatively low cost, but can really make a difference to your local community. Just touching on CSR again, and something I was going to use as an example earlier was a really good example of CSR that I think is there is when they were building the Tottenham Hotspur stadium. I can't remember. I know the contractors were on there. Was Mace was the main contractor, but
it was. Yeah.
One of the rules, when people are bidding for work now, that's the thing. Environment, sustainability, and CSR is a part of that. And obviously, the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium is in a part of London where there isn't a huge amount of money. And one of the key things that was implemented in there when they got it all signed off and to move the stadium and do it up how they did was to employ locally. That is also a part of social responsibility. Is not hiring lots of people from around the country and paying for them to stay in local hotels, but also how are you going to benefit the local community, provide jobs, and all of these kinds of things are all part of that. So I think
totally agree with that. I was there on Saturday night actually, and we were commenting about when they grew it, and they didn't move it. They actually built around the initial stadium, so quite a lot of the games you're there and you can see the new stadium and the size of it being built around. And of course then they moved to the Elizabeth Stadium for, I think it took them 2 years to then finish it off. But you're right, it's right in the middle of a big sort of location for housing and urban, and it's literally on the street, and you just think, gosh, if you lived here, that must have had a huge impact. But actually, if you were working on it, even better, wouldn't it? Because you're thinking, okay, I'm getting something back out of this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love it. Is there anything else you would like to add that you haven't been able to share so far?
I just would say that I think that as an industry and as a sector and a space, I think it's a really exciting one to be a part of at the moment. I'll keep on referring to it, but it is in its infancy. And I've, in the last 10 years, seen health and safety change drastically from where it was at 10 years ago. They're still working on improving it, and not everyone blaming them for cancelling Conkers. But environment and sustainability is actually really well engaged with by people, and I think that it's only going to get bigger. I think more and more people care about it, and as generations keep on coming through schools and things like that, it's becoming even more important to them, and the greater minds that are coming through are interested in what businesses have to offer around environment, sustainability, and CSR and ESG. So I think that in terms of a space in an industry, I think it's a great tool for a number of things. Good environmental performance can mean you save money or make more money, or you win more work, but it's also a way to attract the best staff. In my opinion, it's a win-win sector and industry at this moment in time.
That's great to hear for recruitment, because we want to hear about growth industries where there's positive, and you're going to make a positive change. And I know, Renu, obviously that's close to your heart as well, isn't it?
Absolutely. I just wanted to say, actually, touching on what George was saying earlier about the environment, and I mean that's the topic for the day. It's going through the application process. I'm still in the early stages, but one of the sections that I have to heavily focus on is environment, and it kind of not just as from the organization recruitment perspective, but also as an individual, it's actually made me think differently about, everything that I do on a day-to-day basis. Do I actually need to make that journey? What else can I do? I mean, I should already be thinking, but this actually gave me a bit more responsibility. I was like, I need to think carefully what I do. And it talks a lot about community as well. we are, in the UK, we are a very giving culture, and it's not just for charities. It's any business that is making profit. How are they impacting on the community? You know, like the example that you were giving about the stadium as well. So all these things come into picture. I think it will only, a certification like a B-Corp will only make us more responsible as individuals and as organizations.
Yeah, and what a lovely place it will be if we get to that point where everyone is. So thank you so much to my guests today, Renu Gundala and George Wilson of Principal People. Really interesting conversation. Lots there to take away for recruiters. And yeah, if this isn't a sector you've considered, then maybe it's something coming out. But even if it's not one that you're going to be recruiting into, having those conversations with clients, talking about the benefits packages, how you can make an impact. I learned when I learned about it, even just deleting your emails out of your inbox saves so much energy. If we all got rid of all of our inbox, we would help the world considerably. So there's little changes that everyone can make. So let's think about what we're doing. And let's finish with a thought of David Attenborough, because he was there right from the start. He started it. He's finishing it today as well. Brilliant. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.